Group cap, sir, please unmute yourself. Colonel, you are muted. Colonel Chenji, you are muted,
Yeah,
sir.
recording has started, sir. The recording has started. So you can start now.
Okay. Yes, we can start now. Raj, you can start up straight away. I'm very sorry for the very poor this audio. It's not a best way to begin with a seminar like this. Raj, go ahead, please.
You want me to start, sir?
Please, go ahead.
Okay. With the permission, President, sir, I will start. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope some ladies are also there in our audience today. Need not to say that this is a matter of great privilege to have you all along with your esteemed speakers on this lovely morning. The clip shown just now, by no means, though the quality was not very good, should be interpreted as views being endorsed by IIRF. Sorry, that is not the case. Idea of showing those clips was only to provoke your thought and opinion so that we can marshal our views in the informed manner for or against the narrative of the events trending on the media today. Wow, what a paradox Afghan has turned out to be. However, before we proceed to unravel this paradoxical development, please allow me to give you a brief introduction to the organizers of this event. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar, as you know, is being organized by the Indus International Research Foundation, also called IIRF. Now, IIRF, IIF is a Delhi-based think tank with its centers at USA and Bangalore. This foundation is part of the global network of scholars, professionals, and veterans based in India and abroad. The foundation focuses primarily on international relations, Indian heritage, history, political, economy, and security studies. Now, coming to our main topic. As already explained in our brochure, today's discussion on Afghanistan will be done in four parts. That is, we will present our analysis separately from the political, military, and economic angles, which will be covered by our expert panelists, Major General A. Chaturvedi, Brigadier V. Suresh Nair, and General C. A. Krishnan, respectively. This will be followed by a talk by our guest speaker, Mr. Sunil Pant, Director, Ghaznafer, Bank of Kabul, and thereafter a comprehensive review of the above talk and wrap up will be done by former ambassador and patron to IIRF, Mr. Anil Sigunaya. Each speaker will be given 15 minutes to speak. The questions will be taken only at the end of the entire talk. So we start first with Major General A. Chaturvedi. I will request him to cover the political angle of the development in Afghanistan. But before that, a brief introduction to the speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, Major General A.K. Chaturvedi, a Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, is a graduate of Military Engineering College, Pune. He did his MTech from IIT Chennai, Management from Osmania University, and MPhil from Madras University. Interesting to note that apart from being an engineer, he is also a trained scuba diver and a trained mountaineer too. In his 38 years of illustrious service in the Army Corps of Engineers, his important assignments had been Garrison Engineer, Chief Engineer, Assistant Chief of Integrated Defense Staff, and Additional Director General Personnel in the E&C branch. He had also been an instructor in College of Military Engineering, Commandant of an Engineering Training Center, and Professor of Strategic Management in CDM Pune. For his outstanding services, he was decorated 4 times, twice by the President of India, once by the Chief of Army Staff, and once by the Army Commander Central Army. He is also the recipient of Rashtriya Atal Award for Military Engineering in 2020. Post-retirement, he is active in writing and lecturing. He has authored a number of books on national security, energy security, water security, value-based leadership, and disaster management. His most important works are on water resource conflict, role of Pakistan in India's energy security, and nuclear energy in India's security matrix. He is a regular guest speaker in many universities. I now invite Major General Chaturvedi to take the stage to cover his political assessment of the current development in Afghanistan. Over to General Chaturvedi, sir. General Chaturvedi, sir. General Chaturvedi, sir, are you in?
No, no, unmute. I think he has to be muted.
General
Somebody must
Chaturvedi,
have
sir, has
to.
to unmute.
No, no, I think it has been centrally unmuted. He's not able to. In the meanwhile, Raj, I want to do a little bit of opening at that. That I think you missed out.
Okay.
General, good morning. You're
Hello.
unmuted, sir.
Good morning.
Sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Centrally,
And,
no, sir, not centrally.
I'm thankful to the organizer for such a generous introduction of mine.
Yeah,
I
already
would say that I still am a student. And before I start, I'll share an anecdote. In 50s in Pakistan, there was a in a class, some teacher asked, who was the Prime Minister of Pakistan? So without batting his eyelash, that boy replied, "Sir, I haven't read today's paper." So that is a similar kind of a situation exists today in Afghanistan. Situation is so fluid that you do not know how it is going to shape up in next moment. Case in point is that you yourself have changed the theme of the discussion. Before I further proceed, I'll share two observations of the historical observations about Afghanistan. One is that Afghanistan has been the graveyard of all the invaders from time immemorial who tried to capture Afghanistan. Probably one exception was Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And latest being US. Second observation is the transfer of power generally in Afghanistan had been peaceful. Very paradoxical from first to second, I'm saying, but it is the bribe and corruption and through that negotiated settlements. Even in the present case, Taliban, most of their victories had been through negotiated settlement. And Afghan National Army capitulated without even fighting. Now, before we proceed further, let's know who is an Afghan. It's a very cliched term. Afghanistan has got 14 ethno-linguistic groups. And from 1160, I was just trying to see 1160 CE to 1747, the name Afghanistan was not there. It's only the colonials, they gave this name. Because of all these linguistic minorities or majorities or groups or tribal groups, important thing is 42% are Pakhtun and Pashtuns. Basically, Pakhtuns. Then Tajiks are about 27%. Hazaras are about 9 to 10%, and majority of them are Shia. Uzbeks are also 9%. And then there are others. I'll not go into the details of those things. They are all available in the net. But this only shows that these have got a very major bearing on our further discussion. second divide in Afghanistan is about sectarian divide, Shia Sunni divide. Majority of people in Afghanistan are Sunni, but northern areas, Hazaras, Ismailis, and about say 9 to 10%, and some figure says about say 15% Shias are there. Third is urban versus rural divide. About 71% are rural areas, and about say 23-24% are urban, and about say 4% are nomadic. Now, with all these things, we must remember one thing, that Taliban's base is rural, Taliban's base is Sunni, Taliban's base is Pashto. So you can well imagine that where exactly the center of power lies. Now let us also see for some details about who is Taliban. Taliban actually is a word in Pashto which means student. So in North Waziristan, there's some schools were created and there were madrasas, and from there people came. And when Mujahideens were fighting, and their internecine fight and the corruption led to the state where Taliban say came in. And by 94 they came, and 96 their power was to almost, except few areas, leaving few areas, they were in power in from 96 to 2001. They were in power. Then another very interesting thing about this is, in the current conflict, they are trying to project a very softer image, for which, if you know, if you recall, 2013 they established a Doha office, which was, and from there they started getting kind of a international exposure. And also, interestingly, they also went in a very strong whispering campaign, and they started telling Afghans that their leadership is basically all foreign nationals and they have no stake in Afghanistan. Ashraf Ghani confirmed that. In this case, a very interesting thing, another thing which emerges, that in 2009, there's an Asia Foundation which did a survey in Afghanistan, and they came out with that almost most of the Afghans, especially Pashtuns and rural Afghans, they were for change regime and they wanted once again Taliban to come back. However, the same thing got changed in 2019. Only 13.4% wanted Taliban to come back. Now let's consider the situation post US and NATO force intervention in September 2001. Obviously, Taliban could not hold against US forces, and by December 2001, it was the regime got changed. Hamid Karzai became interim president. 2003, there was a Loya Jirga. 2004 on, the new constitution was promulgated, and Afghanistan had a president, duly elected president. This has got a, please underline this word, duly elected president as per the constitution, and a bicameral system. There was then Bholeshi Jirga, which was a lower house, and Misrano Jirga, which was the upper house. Now, the situation is that certain legitimacy started coming to Taliban 2013 onwards, when they started opening that office in Doha. The first major step towards that legitimacy was given by, I was hearing this clip of US, and I was getting annoyed because it was their first, they gave the legitimacy. They didn't talk to Afghan national, I mean, they didn't involve the president and government of Afghanistan. They talked only to Taliban, as if they were the representative of the people. Besides that, Chinese latest is that on 28 July they gave legitimacy when they Wang Yi led the Taliban delegation. Third is even Russians had their own game. Recently, there was a very interesting disclosure by that it was that for last 7 years they were trying to woo Taliban and they were supporting Taliban. So Taliban is not a creation of a day; it's a creation of a long, long time. Now, in this case, let us see one more thing. Hamid Karzai was Pashtun, Ashraf Ghani was Pashtun, even Dr. Abdullah is a half Pashtun, his mother is Tajik. So, therefore, Pashtuns have a centrality, and it is a intertribal fights which have got a repercussions for the supremacy. And the power vacuum which has come, it was thought that who will be controlling it? So initially, of course, there was a very major power vacuum on 15th when suddenly Ashraf Ghani decided to flee the country. But the discordant notes started immediately. Amrullah Saleh, who was the vice president, he straight away moved to Panjshir Valley. Panjshir, he belonged to Panjshir. And he, along with Ahmad Masood, who's son of legendary Ahmad Shah Masood, they created a kind of a situation where he declared that I am the president now, caretaker president, because it is as per the constitution. Now, this kind of a situation, and there are two more provinces, Kapisha and one more, which are not under Taliban control. So therefore, they started rejuvenating Northern Alliance now. In addition to this, there had been a lot of last 20 years, what has been happening in Afghanistan, the kind of empowerment which women have got, the kind of empowerment which the people have got, the education has improved. With all this, it's unlikely that people are going to take this kind of a thing, I mean, without resistance. And last 2-3 days is a clear indication of that kind of a thing, that this is happening. Now, in this case, I would like to indicate one very interesting observation I have. Afghanistan was Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, controlled by a constitution. If Taliban take over, which they claim Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, then what is the locus standi of that constitution? Because they are not going to hold elections, and if whether Mullah Baradar or someone else comes up, which we'll talk a little later, that means democracy for the time being is not there. Who had been the fall guy? We are seeing that it is America. Their intelligence failure, they didn't understand. The training methods were quite wonky. Because any army, I mean, which I'm not going to talk much about army because someone else is going to talk, but the fact remains that army is something which draws a strength when they are well fed administratively, well looked after, they are well poised administratively, and then only they can take tactically and strategically an unbalanced position to win the battle. In this case, there had been cases where they did not have enough to eat. So many of those soldiers sold their weapons. Now, all these years the training was such that whether they spent $83 billion or whatever the 5,000 casualties they sustained, Americans and NATO forces themselves to be blamed for this. And there are others who were playing the games. As I mentioned about Russia, about China, because China had its own interest. China's interest essentially is not only that mineral wealth of Afghanistan, they are also looking for options for CPEC's alternate routes. they are also looking for options that Taliban do not venture into Xinjiang and create trouble in support of ETIM, East Turkestan Islamic Movement. Even Pakistan, which is feeling quite happy, but they have reasons because their effort of 20 years have paid. But probably they are missing certain points. If they
General Chaturvedi, you're muted, sir. You're muted. Please unmute yourself, General.
So what I was saying that Pakistan will have to remember this, that there is something called Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Durand Line is unstable and not accepted by any regime, whoever had been in Afghanistan. So therefore, in future, is not going to be very comfortable for Pakistan either. They are thinking of strategic depth. Maybe Pakistan will be used as a strategic depth by Taliban in Afghanistan, and which they did for last 20 years. Now, before we proceed, one thing which is interesting, which I find, is about besides say Tajik's insurgency, which is being fueled by Amrullah Saleh and Ahmad Mashoud and the people. There's another thing is that let's see that is Taliban a monolithic force? No, it is not. It has got its own kind of issues. It is headed by Akhundzada. If you recall, he's the same Akhundzada who, when he became the leader of Afghanistan, I say Taliban, he showed his inclination for being friendly with Ayman Zawahiri. That means if he becomes head of the government, there is a possibility and probability that Al Qaeda will get a new lease of life. The second is, say, Mullah Baradar, who is, if you recall, from 2010 to 2018, he was in Pakistan jail because then he was captured in Karachi. And it is on nudging by America that Pakistan spared him and he came to Doha, and he is the one who had been, say, interacting with everyone. So he is yet another, how is he going to react? Third is Sirajuddin Haqqani, the present head of Haqqani Network. Now, we all know that Haqqani Network, when Jalaluddin Haqqani was also there, they are sponsored, paid, and everything by ISI. So therefore, where their loyalty would lie is a big question mark. Now there's yet another set of people who are interestingly are angling for something, and that is Hamid Karzai and Abdullah Abdullah. If you recall, after Hamid Karzai, when Ashraf Ghani became the president, the credibility of Ashraf Ghani was quite questionable. His election in round one, he almost by 10% he lost to Abdullah Abdullah. So Abdullah Abdullah, expecting, he did not accept the election, and so they had to create a new appointment called CEO. Later, after this 19 election, he became the chairman of that high-powered negotiating committee. So now they have created a coordination committee where Hamid Karzai, Dr. Abdullah, and of all people, that Hikmat Yar is member. Hizb Islami's previous commander, who was prime minister also at some point in time when Mujahideen were there. So they have their own interests. So this is yet another interest group. Now, good thing about Taliban is that they have got a very set procedure. They have got a complete council. They called Rahabri Jirga, and under that there are all departments are there. They've got a judicial department and everything. And they are making all good sounds initially they made, but how good in 2 days only it came out. In rural areas it was coming out early. Now it is coming out openly. And this is going to show that Wolf may have hidden himself, but he cannot change his character. So Taliban is going to remain Taliban. And now Americans were thinking they'd go back by September end, and now they have already put 6,000 troops there. So therefore, what did they go for? So situation is absolutely fluid, and we must, when we talk of Afghanistan, we must take into account the international ramifications also of this. Turkey has its own interest. Turkey wants to become the leader of Islamic world, and so therefore they're trying to meddle into Afghanistan affairs.